I read 3 very interesting brand new manga, and I think you might enjoy them as well. Witch Rive, Witcher 4, I don't know how to say it. You might have heard about this story, dark fantasy, magic, hooray. Twitter was having a field day with this story. On one half, people really enjoyed it. On the other half, they didn't really enjoy it. The complaints that I've seen is that the dialogue isn't all too great and it doesn't really have a unique hook. The positives that I've seen was that it starts off very brutal, repercussions straight out the door, and then its artwork is very pretty. Where do I sit for this story? I'm gonna be annoying and say right in the middle. I enjoyed it. I agree with the positives, but I can also see the complaints. They just don't really annoy me that much. Its dialogue at the moment is definitely not its strong suit, and it does not really have a unique twist. But that's okay. For context, Witch Rive is a dark fantasy story where witches are a minority. So much so that if you're a witch and you get caught by humans, or you're even friends with a witch, supporting them, housing them, whatever it may be, you will either get brutally killed, beat, murdered, tortured, whatever, or if you're a witch, you will get sent to a witch camp. And then most likely all that stuff will happen as well. So witches are in hiding and they have to be careful. One thing that I like about this story that I think it constructs instantly, very first chapter, but really, really well, is the scary, overly perceptive nature of your neighbor. Basically think of your neighbor constantly spying on other neighbors to figure out if they are a witch or not, or if they have magical friends. And you think that this would be a pretty easy thing to navigate. Don't use powers, don't do anything all too flashy or crazy. But these neighbors are so perceptive. They have such a keen eye that something as simple as glasses kind of breaking or cracking and then suddenly being fixed is enough to cause suspicion. And really, suspicion gets you killed because there's no real fight for yourself. There's no laws for witches. There's no way to prove your innocence. If you don't give up the witches, even if you didn't come in contact with one, but you're suspicious of either being a witch or being in support or around a witch, if you don't give the information that they want, they will either brutally beat you or just kill you. You don't really have a choice. So you don't even want to risk anything within this world when it comes to witches. You see this in full force within the first chapter. I think it's a great way to set expectation, to set the fear. Being a witch is not a simple thing. You constantly have to look over your shoulder. It's a very isolating experience. You can't really make friends or fall in love. And if you try to, it's incredibly difficult and incredibly dangerous. There's really not a positive life outlook on being a witch. Even if, you have the most crazy ability ever or something really small and simple. It's so nerve-wracking to even operate as a witch or even as a friend of a witch, whatever. I would like for them to play on that, continue to elevate it even more, but more than likely it will lose that appeal rapidly. Mostly because the power fantasy of witches is that they kind of overcome everything. And the main character doesn't have the strongest of abilities, but definitely has one that gets her out of situations really well. It's sewing mechanic. She can sew anything or anyone to anything, really, which is cool. It's a nice ability. Instead, what you do kind of start to move into is this rebellion, malicious style witch story, which feels like it's slowly going towards, which is rather fascinating. These witches are being sent to camps where they're most likely killed and murdered or put to work, whatever it may be, and some of them are being broken out. So the main character is trying to look for her mother, who got abducted by humans and sent to one of these camps, and she meets another witch where a similar thing has happened. So their goals aligned, they join forces. It's difficult for them to join forces because they're so nervous about the world, which again, that overbearing, overshadowing figure is just looming there. And now we're looking for rebellious witches and how they oppose human governments and sanctions. At least on that front, there's a really compelling story here, and I'm curious to see how far they actually go with it. They have the artwork to back it up. It's beautiful. Obviously, it's very early to judge characters, but they're fine. They operate well. They have their nice moments in there. But really, the emphasis is on the brutality of this world and the very back and forth tug-of-war struggle between humans and witches, and how that is escalating further and further to what eventually would be all-out war. I think the story has potential. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. Punk Gun. I did not know what to expect from this story, but just looking from the image, I was already intrigued because I thought it was like dystopian, maybe cyberpunky, just gives that vibe, and it kind of is that. But the story is not really what I was expecting, even though now thinking about it, the title is quite literal. Punk Gun is this very gritty, dirty, trashy, stylistic story about a bunch of orphan children that have it really, really bad. So you kind of shown this town that is just within the dumps. People are using drugs, people are doing crazy stuff, crimes, etc. And the city itself is just not a good place to be. It's the lowest denominator, the poor of the poor. It's a really rough time. And these kids are struggling to survive. These kids want to make money, and they fall into a bit of an issue. Get themselves a gun, don't really have bullets for it, figured that they could do bounty hunting and take out the worst criminals of criminals that this city provides. Now you have kind of a dual perspective where you have a family of kids, two of them specifically kind of go out and do the stuff. They're very determined to make money and provide support for their family. And then you have a perspective from the police who are kind of hunting down these bounties or serial killers or just weird people that get bounties put on them, and they kind of cross paths with these kids ever so often. Like the kids are trying to kill like the serial killers or weirdos for the money, and the police are like, how do you keep coming in contact with this stuff? You know what I mean? Like eventually they'll put two and two together. I'm not too sure what this story kind of wants to accomplish. I think aesthetically it's really pretty. Like it is gross, trashy. It's got that garbage aesthetic that I think is really fitting for the approach it's going for. It's rough, it's brutal, it's focusing on children that have been through the wars and continue to go through the wars, and they're trying to better themselves, but the only way that they can beat the system or better themselves is by hunting down these weirdos and collecting the bounty by, turning them in or eventually killing them. I personally really enjoy stories like this because you can explore so many different facets of the human psyche, especially from a child's perspective in a situation like this. How would this child think and act and approach a situation like this when they know that, it's wrong and that it's bad, but they also have to protect themselves. They also have to protect their family. They also want to provide for their family. And if they don't provide for their family will die or starve to death. Things become worse, etc., etc. Like there's so many things to explore in so many different ways. And using kids is always incredibly painful, sad, and really emotional. And I appreciate authors that are willing to take that rather deep dive into such serious topics. This story does not shy away from a lot of brutal stuff, but there is very implicit stuff right from the get-go, so do be warned if you check it out. I think it has potential. I just don't really know how long you'd want this story to be or how far you truly take it. Maybe with a bit more time we'll figure out a clearer path for it, but I'm excited to see it grow. Delinquent Gacha. This is arguably the weirdest story I've read in a long time, and I shouldn't be surprised because it's by the author that done Smother Me. If you never heard of Smother Me, it was only was it this year or last year? Very recently, the author released a story called Smother Me, which was about a child assassin, and it was super creative, super crafty. It has some of the most interesting panel work and artistic flair that you'll see. A lot of the times it uses colors to emphasize things. Progression or story or character work is usually really detailed and crisp, but very specific, like to the point. It does not dilly-daddle, it doesn't beat around the bush. This is their new story, and I really enjoyed Smother Me. Delinquent Gacha, I don't even know how to explain what type of story this is. There is a school that is full of delinquents. All of these delinquents are like over-exaggerated thugs, like almost syndicate crime mafia bosses, if you will. This is the worst school to be at. The main character and a friend basically tries to play a game of gacha to get another delinquent into the school. So they want someone that they can befriend that is strong enough to beat up and take over the school, basically. So they pray and they pray and they pray and they hope and they gamble and they do so many things for this gacha influence until they get what they so desire. But instead of it being like a hulking, scary delinquent with a ton of fighting experience that can brutally beat up everybody, they get this young girl who's just normal. She's not even a delinquent. And then the story kind of just spirals into its own thing from there. If there's anything that this author does incredibly well, it's writing something very, very unique. It doesn't seem like it'll go for a long time, maybe another short story, but the concept of this story, the idea, the execution, everything about it is so refreshing and unique and really out there to experience. I know a lot of people won't enjoy it just because of one, how it's visualized, but two, the type of story it is just not compelling for a lot of people. Like, what are even these things mashing together? But if you can get your enjoyment around that chaoticness, it kind of pays off really well. Smother Me was definitely more directional. It had more of a spine, but still very chaotic and all over the place. This one is times 10, times 100, way more out there. And I think for how crafty this author can be, we're seeing it on display here with Delinquent Gacha. I could not tell you where this goes or what the story is trying to accomplish. All I can say is that it is a experience to read. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it is flavored to the roof and it is a fun, bombastic time. So if this sounds compelling, if Punk Gun sounds interesting, or maybe Witch Riv is more up your alley, please go give them a chance. And if you have read them, I would love to hear your thoughts.